After the weapons school, all these guys saying, "Well, Steve, you need to go to the Pentagon." And I thought, well, you need to go to a major command. And it came to pass that, remember the guy I told you about, Larry Keith, that introduced the MiGs at the weapons school? Mm-hmm. Now Brigadier General, and he was the American senior ranking officer at a little backwater staff job, NATO staff job, called the 2nd Allied Tactical Air Force. And it was at Rheindahlem in Germany, up near Dusseldorf. Mm-hmm. And he somehow remembered me, and he said, "I'd like this guy to come over and work for me." So I thought, well, Pentagon, Major Command, Larry Keith, yeah, I'll go work for Larry Keith. So I did. I went over to Rheindahlem, which was not, again, if you're one of those guys that's watching your career and you're balancing this and you're trying to do that and was the wrong thing to do in spades, Yeah. But hell with it. I did it anyway. And I ended up over at 2 ATAF, and Larry Keith, when he left, once again, luck smiled on me. And another one of my heroes in the Air Force, a guy named Billy G. McCoy, took over from Larry Keith. And Billy G. was once again, he had been a squadron commander at Bentwaters when I was there. I knew him from a lot of places. So he took over there, and, the second half of my tour at Rheindahlem was much more pleasant because of him and his wife and what they added to it. Awesome. So then I finished my 3 years there. And I thought, okay, it's back in the cockpit for Steve. Back in the cockpit. So I started lobbying with the guys out of Randolph, the flesh peddlers out there. And I had just made colonel, just made full colonel. And so I was under the fabled colonels group, which I thought, these guys will treat you well. As I learned, really, they were smarter about how they were screwing you. about all that happened. So anyway, I was lobbying with these guys, and I said, I want to go back to the cockpit. And they're saying, in your dreams, are you going back to the cockpit? So I said, come on now. So they came back to me and they said, we have a real problem, Steve. We have a staff job that we have to fill at US UCOM in Stuttgart in Germany. And you are the only man on earth that can do this job. Oh, wow. You heard him spin you that line before?
Yeah, the car salesman. Yeah, it's just you. This one's it's got your name on it.
Yeah, that's right. You are the only guy on the planet that can do the job for us. And I said, I don't want to do that. I went back and I talked to my wife, and we said, oh, man, it may just be about time to pull the handles here. And then once again, a ray of light shone from above. And there was a general, brigadier general, a guy named Dale Tabor, who had been a wing commander at Bentwaters during part of the time I was there. And he was at headquarters USAFE in the director of operations thing, and he took care of assignments and that kind of thing. So I thought, all right, this guy is my supreme court for this assignment.
Yep.
And I'm going to get an appointment with him, and I'm going to go down and I will crawl and grovel. So I didn't. I got the appointment with him, and I went in to see him. We shook hands. He was a good guy. He remembered me, and I remembered him. We talked about flying hogs for a little bit, and that was all good. And he said, I understand you're not too happy about your assignment. That's all I needed. I launched right into it. If I'd had a Walkman at that time, if they'd been I'd have had God Bless America and the first song looped and all the rest of it. I said, I understand how important these staff jobs are, NATO jobs, but I've just been in the NATO job, and I really want to go back to American Air Force stuff. And he said, well, he said, I knew you weren't happy, but he said, I didn't think you'd show up here with your dagger unsheathed. He said, let me see what I can do about it. So I thought, okay, well, that's the best I'm going to do with this. A couple of weeks later, the flesh peddler called, a little annoyed, and he said, we found another only guy on the planet that can do this job in Stuttgart, and you're going to go to Ramstein in the DOO shop. So I ended up going back to the U.S. Air Force, albeit in another staff job.
Oh.
You want to talk about the flying career. So this one didn't last very long, about 10 months. And at that time, after about 10 months in Ramstein, the two-star called me in and he said, I can't understand this. He said, somebody wants to put you back in the cockpit and send you to Bentwaters as the DO.
Yeah.
And I said, are you going to let me go, sir? And he said, can't wait to get rid of you. But he said, don't tell anybody yet until the paperwork's. So I ended up going to Bentwaters as the director of operations as an 06.
An 06 director of operations. Wow, that's
That's now that it would be now. I think it would be called the ops group commander.
Oh, okay, yeah, OG. All right, that makes sense. Yeah.
At the time, it was DO.
Gotcha.
It's the OG.
Wow, flying the A-10.
Flying A-10s, yes, often.
Did you go back to Tucson and do a TX course or like a senior officer course or?
Yeah. I'll tell you what a great time that was. It was like going to the circus. Back to DM, they gave me a bunch of cassette tapes. They said, "Here, learn about all the systems." And I said, "I know about all the systems. I'm going to the poly bar, and then I ended up. I was there for about nearly a month, and the instructors kept grumbling. They saying, "Well, this is a 4-ride program shoved into a month." And I said, "Yeah, but man, I'm really enjoying it." I got through with that, and I went back to Bentwaters, and that was great assignment. I enjoyed that immensely. For a senior officer, I was flying airplanes a lot.
Yeah.
And it was good.
And this is this is the late 80s, early 90s, or?
This was I left in 91, I think. Yeah.
Wow. So you're spinning
89 to 91.
Yeah. So this is the end of the Reagan era, end of the Bush years.
End of the good years.
Yeah. You're right. You're right at the end of the golden age of being a fighter pilot, and things are.
Absolutely.
Have they started changing by now?
Not too much. No, not too much. At least in Europe. Now, it may have been back here in the States, but in Europe, no, it was still good times. The Bentwaters bar, believe it or not, for about 3 Quonset huts that are linked together, was probably the second best bar I ever went to in the Air Force, and it continued to be such. We had the biggest fighter base in the world at the time. We had 6 squadrons,
holy crap,
A-10s, plus an aggressor squadron, F-16 aggressor squadron.
How many A-10s?
108.
And how many were in your group?
6 squadron, all of them.
Holy crap, 108 A-10s. Wow.
108 A-10s. Once again, I got the call, and my old friend, Billy G. McCoy, who had gone into Rheindahlen as a 1-star, was now a 2-star, and he was the fighter weapons center commander at Nellis. And he said, how'd you like to come out and work for me for a couple of years? Wouldn't I just? So I headed out to Nellis, and I interviewed there for another job, which was as the Air Warrior Commander. At the time, it was the 549th JTD, Joint Training Division, so it was the division commander's job. It was a full colonel's job. Are you familiar with Air Warrior? Is that?
No.
They call it green flag now, I think, Mover. It's the close air support.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Flag.
Mm-hmm.
And it started out as basically the same kind of thing. We hosted units, primarily A-10s and F-16 units coming from all over, to come in for about a three-week period. And they flew close air support in support of the Army units that were doing brigade and battalion size exercises at Fort Irwin in California. At Fort Irwin, they had an aggressor force, Russian armor, guys that used Russian armor tactics, and they were doing the same kind of thing that our aggressors do. They were bringing in units from everywhere, and they were going against this aggressor force, something CAV, the Black Horse Cavalry or something like that, that majored in Soviet units. We were providing close air support for this major exercise. So we were doing two things. We were their training aids as far as using air. And of course, our guys were learning one hell of a lot about close air support by going up there and doing it. So it was a wonderful program. We had lots of money. It was still, Reagan's budget dried up yet. We had lots of money, so they built us into probably the most sophisticated learning center, other than probably Red Flag, in the world. And we had the auditorium. We had data link on all the airplanes. You could follow them in. You could watch the battle ensuing on the big screen. You could play it back. I had working for me a team of ALOs, air liaison officers, up at Fort Irwin that worked with the Army. And they joined into the debriefs, and the Army commanders got in the debriefs, and we all got together on the phone and speakers and stuff like that, watched it all happen, and then debriefed it, and that's the way it went.
Did you get to fly in it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, didn't I just?
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that was the other good thing. The only bad thing about Air Warrior was it was an early start. And our briefings normally started about 3 a.m.
Well, you're done earlier. That's all. Yeah. You're just done earlier.
And for an old man, it was really tough getting up at 2:15. Oh. But I did it just the same.
Just get up when you get up to pee. Just be like, all right, I'm up.
Yeah, that's right. I'm up anyway. Might as well.
God, yeah. That is awesome.
And that, I did my thing again, and my wife, oh, bless her soul, I extended a year there. And so that took me on up, and basically, since I'm an honest kind of guy, I got served at the end of that. So they said, you're an old colonel, we don't need you anymore, you can waltz on out of here.
How many years?
28.
Wow, that's that is an amazing career. What did you think about your Finney flight in the A-10?
The Finney flight in the A-10 was something. I had spent all this time flying airplanes, very little time wearing blues and doing that kind of thing. So I thought, well, what the hell, I'll give it a shot. And I went up to the wing commander at Nellis, and I said, boss, I've spent 25 of 28 years wearing a green bag. I said, I would like my Finney flight to be in a green bag. I would like to lead a flight of 4, go to the range, come back, pitch out, land, climb out of the airplane, kiss my wife, go give a speech, and say adios. And to my great amazement, he said, okay, don't shine your ass. So we didn't own any airplanes at Air Warrior, units that came in. So my good buddies at the weapons school, I gave them a call, and I said, hey, got a deal for you. I said, I'll take you on one of the great missions of your life if you'll loan me 4 airplanes and a couple of IPs, which they did. And what it was the my maintenance guys really did me proud, and the munitions guys. Configuration: 2 Mavericks, each airplane. 2 Mavericks, each airplane. Full load of Mark 82s. Combat mix, full load of combat mix. Make sparkles when they hit the ground, that kind of thing. And that's how I took my first ship up to the 70 series ranges.
All live.
And off we went, all live. Oh yeah, absolutely, all live. Went up to the 70 series ranges. Went after the tactical targets up there. Did magical things with Mavericks and guns and bombs and all that stuff. And because we could legally on the Nellis ranges, home again at 100 feet AGL.
Awesome. Yes.
Yes, it was. And I mentioned it in the book. I was a pretty good boy throughout my career. I didn't do too many things that would really get me in trouble. But on the way home, I'm home, the guys were in spread. And I thought, this is the last time I am ever going to get to do that. And the one thing I always wanted to do in an airplane was fly under a bridge. Well, there ain't any. No bridges in the 70 series ranges. So I settled for something else that I seen in the movies that always used to give me goosebumps. And we were rattling along here at 100 feet, and I said, hard flight, continue, so it wouldn't react. I pulled it up, and I did a big victory roll over 3 or 4 trailer dwellings down below the desert. And I thought, well, it's not as pretty as a Spitfire or a Mustang, but man, it felt good.
That's awesome.
Of course, they didn't budge. Professionals all. I pulled back in, and one of the guys said, Gesundheit. Covering my appalling lack of discipline, Gesundheit. And I thought to myself, man, I am really going to miss you guys. I really am.
It's the people. The people are the best part.
Yeah. We came back to the pattern and pitched out. And I did a low approach. They landed. I asked for a closed. They had a little marquee, a little tent out next to the Air Warrior building with people, and my dad and my brother and sister and a bunch of folks had come out to watch me retire and all that. So I did a nice zippy closed over that, and I went back around, and I put the gear and the flaps down, and I said, Nellis Tower, Hog 1 is base gear, stop right for the last time. And something in my eye here. Remember?
Yeah, you're getting me. You're getting me right now just thinking about it.
The guy in the tower said, Hog 1, you're clear to land. You're clear to land, run right or whatever it was. The last time, Godspeed, sir.
Yeah.
And there it was. 28 years. Landed, taxied in. The Wing King brought a bottle of champagne out, kissed my wife. 3 of us had a swig, did a little bit of trash talking to the people that gathered, and off to the club for a few beers and a good time.
Wow!
And I can only say, as I did throughout the book, how lucky I was to have done the things I was able to do. Because an awful lot of it had nothing to do with any skill or cunning on my part. It just fell into place.
Luck and timing. That's what I always tell people. Yeah. Luck and timing. Let's talk about your book, because I was taking a look at it. I've got one coming in. Yeah, this is the most important part. I know the struggles as a writer. It's not easy. What inspired you to write it? And tell me about your process.
What inspired me was nothing particularly amazing. It's just the fact that my wife and I often talked about the experiences and the things that we did and where we went and what we saw, and I thought, well, I can put this down on paper, and I think I can make a pretty good story out of it that people will understand. And from the very beginning, of thinking about writing the book, I thought, now I could sit down here and I could try to write a book about my flying exploits. I could try to be Jack Broughton or Robin Olds, but I'm not. Never a hero, never shot down a MiG for real. Never pinned on a star, never got the Medal of Honor. So I thought that's pretty dumb. Why should I do that? Why don't I write a book about the people and the culture that I was a part of for all these years, rather than look at me, here I was at 20,000 feet. Nobody wants to know that. My Vietnam era people, I had a little bit of criticism because I wrote very little about Vietnam tour. And that's because A, I was a gib, I was backseater, and B, I did nothing more than 1,000 other guys did during that war. I did my job. I flew 204 missions. I got shot at and hit, shot at and missed, did all that stuff, but I really didn't do anything that was worthy of note. So why should I write about that? Let's instead write about the people and the culture and the attitudes that make a fighter pilot. And that's what I've done. The idea was, and what I hope I've achieved, is a book that, A, is not so simplistic that the bros out there will look at it with scorn and derision and say, who needs to know that? And on the other hand, not so complicated and full of jargon and that kind of thing that the average reader who doesn't know a lot about the military or aviation might still find things of interest in it. Yeah. So if I've done that, I've done what I wanted to do.
Wow. And so how did you go about getting published?
You remember we talked about luck?
I did.
Same thing. I suspect you probably did this too when you were first getting into it. I wrote dozens and dozens of letters to publishers and agents and folks like that, and every now and then one of them would deign to answer and say, well, thanks for your. And then I ended up, I was at the pub with a bunch of guys that I go out drinking with, and I mentioned to them, I'm about to finish my book here, and one of the guys says, he says, my daughter works for the BBC. He said, she runs with people in that kind of circle, and she just might be able to help you. And I said, no, I didn't say that really. I said, I bit his hand off. And so I got in touch with her, and she said, not my line of work, but she said, try this guy and this guy. So I wrote them both a bit. I sent them excerpts and that kind of thing. And the one guy said, well, no, he said, it's not my thing. And the second guy said, no, it's not my thing either, but I think I may know someone whose thing it is. So he gave me, again, a contact with a guy in Pen and Sword Books. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. It's a British operation. They work with Casemate in the States, which you may have heard of. Mm. And I got in touch with this guy, and he looked at the excerpts, and he said, we'd like to publish your book. Wow. And I said, I'd like you to do that. I think that would be very kind of you to do that. And that's how it went. It took me 7 years to write this because I'm lazy. I'm fat. I'm lazy. My wife, bless her, every now and then at the end of 4 or 5 years, charged up the cattle prod, and she came down and gave me some inspiration and a little motivation to get it done. And wow. I've been absolutely delighted with the way it's turned out.
And where is it available?
Everywhere. It's on Amazon, obviously.
We'll leave the links in the description.
It's available in the States, Casemate Books, which is there. It's available from Book Depository. It's available from Barnes & Noble. It's available. Just awesome. Google it. Google my name, Google the title, and
yeah, we'll leave links, but that's awesome. Well, It's been an amazing time interviewing. Before I let you go, I know it's been a while, but there's a couple standard questions we always ask, and I just wanted to ask you these real quick before we go. First off, what is the fastest you've ever been in an airplane?
The fastest would be just topping Mach 2 in the F4.
Yeah. A-10's not going to come in there. That's not A-10.
No. We don't talk about speed in the A-10.
Do you have a scariest flying story, whether A-10? I mean, what is your scariest flying story?
Okay. I have to say this in the book, but my scariest time, like I said, after 204 missions, I got shot at. I've had numerous emergencies of one kind or another, but the scariest, the most terrifying few minutes of my life were spent on a tanker over northern Thailand. I was in the back, obviously. That's the only place I ever was, in Thailand. And it was my turn to get the gas. And the guy in the front, Bob Fickle, R.I.P., Nickel, he said, it's all yours, you got it. So I finished the rejoin, got up behind the tanker, and we were over, again, northeastern Thailand, clear above, stars, that kind of thing, very sparsely populated below. So if you look down, it looked very much like it did when you looked up, sparse lights here and there, and that kind of thing. Adding to that, we were in a bank of cirrus cloud that was in and out of it, fairly thick in spots, and then out of it for a while. We were a 4-ship. I got hooked up on the tanker. I was taking gas, fat, dumb, and happy. And we went into one of these banks of cirrus. Tanker rolled into about 20 degrees of bank. When we came out of the other side of the cirrus, I was upside down.
Oof.
For all the other airplanes, and so was the tanker, we were all inverted over northeast Thailand. And you know the old adage, always believe your flight instruments. They will not lie to you. Your brain will. Well, it did. Trust me. And I did that. I looked at the flight instruments. The brain lied to me, and I believed the brain. The brain screamed at me, said, "You stupid bastard, you are upside down. You are all upside down. If you don't do something, you're all going to crash and burn." So I looked back at the attitude indicator. I looked back up. My brain lied to me again, and the sweat's pouring off of me, and I said, "Shit." Bob Fickle up in the front said, "Shit? What do you mean shit?" You know, that's what a front seater would do when you make the expletive, and he doesn't know why. And I told him, I said, I am completely inverted. My gyros have tumbled more than you would believe. And he said, "Well," he said, "you want me to take the airplane?" And I said, "Nope. I'm going to get this one out. I'm going to beat it." So he said, "Okay." He said, "I'll give you a GCA." He said, "We're in 20 degrees of bank, and we're in level, right side up." And this went on for about 4 or 5 minutes, I guess. And the whole time, my brain was lying to me. And the whole time, wow, I was upside down. And it finally snap rolled out of it and came out the other side. And I'm where I should be. And I said, "All right, Bob, you got the airplane now." But I tell you, I have never in my life experienced such terror. I almost got to the point where I sounded bad on the radio. I'm bad on the radio. Almost got to the point. It was absolutely terrifying. And never happened since. But,
wow.
Most guys that fly airplanes can identify with it to some extent, but to me, it just wouldn't go away. You know, I couldn't shake it. No matter how much I looked at that attitude indicator, and I said, "You're okay there, buddy." I couldn't shake it.
Wow.
And
wow.
Helpless feeling.
Well,
so that's my scary story.
Two more questions.
Okay.
Smokey, how'd you get your call sign?
Okay. Like most guys did, through a bonehead play. I didn't get a tactical until I was in 06, believe it or not. In the early days, most guys didn't have them in the 60s and 70s. You know, it was very bad on the wings, you know, all it said. But it was when it was my last assignment when I was the Air Warrior Commander. And because Air Warrior was a very high profile program, you got visitors, you got high level visitors all the time. You get high rollers coming in. And we were expecting a visit from the attack commander, 4-star guy named Mike Lowe, LOH. And he was due anytime. And I thought, well, looking back at my old T-37 instructor, Tony Chase, I thought maybe it's time for my semi-annual shoe shine. So I sat down in a little chair in the middle of the floor there with the carpet and put a newspaper down. And I was doing my best to shine the shoes with the lighter and the polish and all that kind of stuff. And the staff car pulls up outside and the general steps out of it. And I thought, oh, I dropped the lighter. And the newspaper caught and the carpet. And there's me and one of my staff guys who's an A-10 pilot, and another one of my staff guys who's an F-16 pilot, and we're all there running around without a clue what to do. I had an exec, a first lieutenant, a kid named Mark Seacard, ended it, put it on the fire, put it out, and the rest of us looked at each other and said, "Why didn't we think of that?" So. First Lieutenant Mark Seacard now is Brigadier General Mark Seacard. He's the commander of a reserve C-130 unit.
Wow.
And, I love it when that happens. But that's how I got the call sign. From then on, the A-10 guy who was there dubbed me Smokey, and I have been Smokey ever since. And it's one of those things that you do that you're not real proud of, but it's fitting.
That's how all the good call signs. Those are the best ones. Well, sir, you've had an amazing career. You obviously, we talked about luck and timing, but you know, there's a lot of young aspiring fighter pilots that watch this channel. What advice would you give? You know, I know a lot has changed, but just in general, a kid that's thinking, hey, I want to do this career, I want to follow in your footsteps. What advice would you give somebody like that in just now?
You got to want it with all your heart. You've got to realize that that you're going to have to work hard. Not everybody's going to be as lucky as I was. You're going to have to take it on the chin a few times during the years. But at the end of the day, when you get to be my age, if you've done these things and you've managed to get there and be there and done that, you can look back on it as I do and say, man, there isn't anything on this planet I would rather have done than what I did. It's a lot of hard work, but it's a calling that's well worth making the sacrifices for.
Awesome. Well, sir, thank you so much for being on the channel. We'll have a link in the description for all these videos that you can pick up his new book, which is available now, right?
It is indeed.
All right. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, sir. We appreciate you being on the channel.
Thank you.